Hey guys, this is Mr. V over here doing a book review today for Finders Keepers by Stephen King. Before I get into my book review, I want you to know that I try to do a spoiler-free book review, so if you see me looking down occasionally, I just have some notes, so I try not to give any spoilers away. So let's get into the book review for Finders Keepers by Stephen King. This is the second in the Bill Hodges trilogy, taking place after Mr. Mercedes, and the main premise for this book is it basically starts out with a seemingly high-stakes robbery going on. And that is about as much as I can say, because I don't want to give anything away. So, yeah, that's about as much as I can say. And I would definitely recommend that you read Mr. Mercedes first, especially considering this is the second in the series. But I would say I'd recommend reading Mr. Mercedes first, because while there is seemingly no relation to Mr. Mercedes, as you don't get Bill Hodges does not come into the book until like the first third or even like halfway through the book. He doesn't come into play at all. So it seems there's no relation, but there definitely is a relation, and that's why you want to have read Mr. Mercedes first. Now, the start of this book was kind of an odd start. I said already that the premise was it starts with like a robbery, but it's kind of odd because you keep jumping between 2 years, like, and 2 stories. You jump between the year 1978 and 2010. And those stories don't seem related. It seems like 2 completely separate stories. And it's like chapter by chapter, each one, it keeps flipping. You go 1 chapter 78, 1 chapter 2010, and it just keeps flipping. And you don't fully know where it's going for a little bit. So that's why it's kind of an odd start. So you want to be wary of that, or you want to know that before getting into the book. But you definitely want to stick with it, because it becomes very fun when they start jumping between the stories after it gets going. It takes a little bit of time, but both stories are a lot of fun. The 1978 story and the 2010 story. And they are a lot of fun. And it just, you actually like that he starts jumping between the stories. It becomes a lot more fun, and it builds a little tension and all that, and kind of leaves you on some cliffhangers, chapters, and things like that. So it can be a lot of fun after he gets the story going. And the story also has an interesting way of developing the characters, because he keeps jumping back and forth between the stories. So like every single chapter, you have like a new set of characters, and there's not too many characters, but you'll have like 2 or 3 characters in one chapter, and then it's like you get to develop them a little bit, and then 2 or 3 characters in another, and it's like, you know, it's like he slowly develops each, and it's very interesting style of developing it. And I thought he did it well, and you do get to know the characters very well in both stories. You get to know the characters very well, and there are some seemingly unknown factors for the characters, but I think when I was reading it, I felt it was done purposely, and that's what also made it fun. Like, there were things you were wondering, and it was like he purposely did not develop certain aspects. So, you know, that was also a lot of fun when he was developing the characters. And overall, you know, Stephen King, he just develops the stories very well. And he doesn't go too fast or too slow in this, in Finders Keepers. He isn't too fast or too slow. I felt it was a nice pace. The chapter length was very good. Towards the end, the chapter length started to go back to like the Mr. Mercedes chapters, which I did not like, where they were very short chapters. But at the beginning, you know, I felt it was a good chapter length. And he starts to weave the stories together very well. And it was already fun leading up to that point, but he weaves the stories together well, and then it starts to become a lot of wonder. And even after he weaves the stories, he can still jump back and forth. And that's what's really great about this story, and a lot of fun. And you know, Stephen King is always great at doing that. And after the story gets going a bit, it becomes very intense. And there's a lot more drama and tension in the story as he gets it going. So that's always really good. And he does all this with a basically somewhat simple plot. Like the robbery that takes place, and then like some other things happen, and all the things are pretty simple. And it's a pretty simple plot, but he builds a lot of tension in there. And I think it's just because it's like mentally crazy. And you know, that was like the first, like I said, like third or maybe half of the book. And then Bill Hodges comes in. Now, I felt mixed about this, and there's people online who were the same. There was people online felt the same. I felt mixed in that I felt that it was better without Bill Hodges. Like, the 2 storylines that he was doing was like a lot better without Bill Hodges, and that it doesn't become bad with him. It's not like it becomes bad, but it was just better when he wasn't around. Like it's hard to explain until you read it, but it was like, it was still good with Bill Hodges in it. I need to clarify that it was still a lot of fun with Bill Hodges in it, but I felt it was better without him because the storylines were developing well without him. And then he comes into the story and it still is a lot of fun. Now the ending area, it was kind of weird. I felt there was started to drag a bit. You know, Bill Hodges became more involved, and that was fine. But the ending seemed to, like, the ending section, like the last like fifth of the book or so, the last like 20% of the book, it seemed to not, I don't want to say drag, but you just wanted it to get like moving a little faster. As there were times of incredible excitement, and then some parts seemed to like stretch a little bit, and you're like, come on, just move it a little faster. Why are you stretching so much here or there? And I don't know, the ending part was a little odd in that regards. It was still very exciting, but it was like, I think it was more exciting up until like the last like 20% of the book. It was like really, really much more exciting, but the last 20% was still very exciting. I don't want you to think it was a bad ending in any way. Now, as for his writing style, I thought Stephen King did a great job writing. He always writes his stuff very well because it was well written, that it keeps you very engaged throughout the whole book. Even the ending section, he keeps you engaged. And the beginning was really cool, as I had already said, where he kept jumping back and forth between the two stories. And even when he's doing that, he's keeping you engaged. And then I said, as he got the story going, you want it to keep going, and you just really became so entertained that you didn't want to put the book down. And you know, that's how I felt in this book, where it was like after he got going, it was like, oh, you just wanted to keep reading it. So that's why I say the writing was done very well, and you know, it was just a lot of fun. Now, one interesting thing about this book, which I don't see in too many of the Stephen King books, and it did not happen in the Mr. Mercedes, was that there was almost like a post-credit scene that you would see in a movie. And I need to make clear, this was not an epilogue, but it was almost like a post-credit scene, which was very interesting in that you could tell that it's leading up to book 3, and it makes you wonder what will happen in book 3. So you can see it kind of leaves it on a slight cliffhanger, and it was almost like a post-credit. And other people online said the same thing. They felt it was like a post-credit scene in a way, and you know, that was also a lot of fun. But you know, overall, I definitely recommend, if you've read Mr. Mercedes, you know, then continue on to Finders Keepers, and know that even though it doesn't seem like it's related to Mr. Mercedes, it does become related to Mr. Mercedes. But I'd definitely recommend it. If you enjoyed Mr. Mercedes, you'll definitely enjoy Finders Keepers. Now, I'm going to get to my official rating. So I always rate my books on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 is an awful book, a 5 is an average, and a 10 is phenomenal. If you guys anywhere near 10, you know, it should be on your reading list, because it's hard to move up in my rating system. It's hard to move up in 1 point. So for Finders Keepers, I'm going to give this book a 7.5. And that's very high in my rating system. I'm giving it a 7.5. I felt this was better than Mr. Mercedes, but it wasn't quite an 8. For a lot of the book, it was an 8 in my mind. Like, I was rating it very high. I would have rated it an 8, but then it started to get weird towards the end, and I said some of my complaints about it earlier. And that's why I brought it down to a 7.5. But it was still a great book, and I still enjoyed it more than Mr. Mercedes. So, I think, again, if you read Mr. Mercedes and enjoyed that one, you guys will enjoy this book. If you guys have any comments or questions, please post it in the comment section below. Hope you guys click the subscribe button, as I always upload multiple different types of book reviews. But thank you for watching my book review today. This is Mr. V. Go enjoy reading.